City of Stevens Point Tourism Commission meeting, recorded July 21st, 2020.
All right, let's call the July 21st, 2020 tourism meeting to order here. Roll call.
I can do it, John. Wynn?
Sure, go ahead, thanks.
Here.
O'Connick?
Here.
Sedlak? Michelle, you are muted. Michelle, I just unmuted you. Are you here?
Yes, I am.
Do you want me to mute you, or are you going to do it yourself?
I'll do it myself.
Okay. Oliva is absent, and Disher.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Item number 2, approval of the February 28th, 2020 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Item number 3, an update on the National Horseshoe Pitchers Association Tournament Grant Award. I guess that's pretty sad. I was kind of looking forward to that showing up. I think it was a good event for the city and the county. I guess, down the road, maybe we'll try again or something on that order. I just wanted the commission to be aware that we did issue a check for $7,000 for that. And we did receive back, Dan, what is it, about $5,700?
$5,415.99.
Okay. We did have a signed agreement that we would get it back. So I guess we as a commission have to decide. There's a difference, amount of money there. So that they did keep for, you can see in their memo, received a memo from Corey. So I guess, is there any questions or comments or what we should do with that?
Didn't part of our motion say that if it didn't go through, we'd get all of our money back?
Correct.
So what happened to the other $1,600 roughly?
Sarah, do you want to speak on that since that's from your organization?
I can speak on that. So in order to bid on the event, we had to put together a video that was a promotional video for the Stevens Point area that showcased the host facility, some of the overflow properties, and what there was to see and do here in Portage County. So we did, that was really, in addition to travel costs and staff time, the only real expense that we had to put the bid together. So, Tom did send the reimbursement less the cost of the production of the video. I think most of you know Matt Kirsch. He produced the video for us in a very quick turnaround so that we could showcase that at National Horseshoe Pitchers as our bid presentation.
Sarah, did the CVB have any, for lack of a better term, cash in that project, or was that all of our tourism grant money that you used for that?
Well, we used a tremendous amount of staff resources to pull that together. So time is money. Tom put an enormous amount of effort into that proposal. We also went down and bid on the event as well. And so we absorbed all of our travel costs. Again, the majority of the cost we absorbed in terms of travel and time.
I don't think we're going to, at least I'm not going to make a demand for the return of the money, because by contract, you were supposed to return everything. That was the bid process. And so I would just like to say, in the future, if we're going to have contracts and bid procedures and we're going to award money, and it says you're going to get all your money back, and if you can't give it all back, somebody should say, hey, I need some permission, or I need some voice on what I should do with this. Because it's pretty clear, Sarah. You You can't just say, if we don't get this thing, we're going to give you all your money back and then keep some because you decided to, I guess, put that on our budget rather than yours. Right? Right?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what the terms of the agreement were exactly. Tom works through that with the Tourism Commission. So I would have to defer to him, and I can follow up with him on that.
Well,
I don't know if that was, if it was for the bid presentation itself, if it was part of the bid fee, because we had to put that, I mean, as part of the bid fee, we had to put that together. So my understanding is that it was part of the overall bid fee.
okay.
I guess my understanding was everything involved in that event, if you got it or not, you know, we would be, it would be returned to the commission, so.
And
Are there
I
any
don't
other
have a problem doing it. Again, I don't know what the understanding
Yeah.
was.
I guess my concern is more precedence of what we're doing and that we continue to follow and not being our money, the city's money. We need to do it the best we can. So any other comments from anybody? All right. So item number 4, review of the 2020 financials and outstanding commitments. So Corey, could you go over that with all of us? Let us know where we're at. Do you have any update for the second, or for this previous quarter, or are we still working from back in March?
Thanks, John. So right now, the second quarter room tax payments are due July 31st. So we don't have a total yet for the second quarter. So at this point, the information that we have is really just the first quarter of 2020, so January through March of this year. So I did include sort of some financial projections in the packet as far as the amount of cash that the Tourism Commission had at the beginning of the year. We have the number for the first quarter, and basically the first quarter room tax collections were about 82% of what they were the year before. You know, of course, you had the shutdown happen kind of mid-March, so that's about right as far as what you would expect, that, you know, a little bit of downturn right at the end of the first quarter. And then the rest of it, I made some projections. And one thing that I really want to stress is, you know, without having actual data, it's a little bit of a shot in the dark. I mean, I did the best that I could. So basically the scenario that I ran was, you know, if we had 10% of our usual collections in the second quarter, and then 20% in the third quarter and 30% in the fourth quarter, so increasing by 10% per quarter. And then I did break down where all of that money would go with the breakdown of projected revenue. I have your projected 2020 expenses, and then at the end of it, I have a projection on your projected year-end cash of $125,047. And then I also have the projected receivable at year-end, and the reason why I have that on there is, so the fourth quarter room tax is due January 31st. So at the end of every year, basically you have money that's due to the commission related to the previous year, but it just hasn't been collected yet. So then that gets your total year-end balance. And then I also do have the remaining pledge obligations, so that you have an idea of sort of where you would be at from what we would call an equity perspective, as far as your assets minus your liabilities. And then I also included a projection for 2021. Basically, what I'm projecting under this scenario is that the Tourism Commission would be using some of its cash in both 2020 and 2021. so losing money in both years. So that's why I did the projection through the end of 2021. And basically the long and the short of it, or the most important piece of information, is at the end of 2021, under this projection, I'm showing you'd have about $70,000 as far as cash in the bank at the end of 2021. I do want to stress that, these are projections, and, I'm certainly not an expert in where things are at as far as hotel stays or room stays. We obviously don't know what the future holds, but like any projection, the numbers will get more accurate the longer that we are in this period of time. Or so, in other words, at the end of this month, we'll have a total for what we did collect for the second quarter, and then another 3 months after that. So 4 months from now, we will have the total for the third quarter as well. So in 4 months from now, we can certainly redo this projection, and I think we'll have a much better idea of where things are at, because we'll be able to see, okay, what was sort of the rock bottom of the second quarter during the shutdown, and then also get a little bit of a feeling for how that recovery is going, and how quickly room tax is recovering. So with that, I know it's kind of a lot of information, a lot of numbers, but available for any questions regarding what I put forward here.
Mr.
So
Mayor?
your projection is kind of like your best guess, kind of, right?
Yeah, it really is. And of course, a lot of this is going to depend on what actually happens with COVID-19, as far as, at some point, is there a vaccine that works, or, does the situation improve? Does it get worse? Do we turn into a Florida or a Texas, where we have some real significant issues? So yeah, at this point, it's kind of trying to predict the future, and put this together to just kind of show you a scenario of what it could look like. But of course, to try to figure out the effects of a pandemic on room tax is, certainly this is a unique situation.
Yeah.
It's not like we can say, well, the last pandemic, these were the effects. So we're kind of
we'll know that next time. But my question would be, it's your best guess, and I appreciate that, but we could be higher, and then again, we could be a lot lower.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I saw yesterday that there's not going to be any football games in Stevens Point this year. I would probably tell you there may not be any hockey games in Stevens Point this year. I'm worried that we could have less money coming in than what you projected, and I appreciate your projections nonetheless. But that's my concern, is that I don't think we're going to even collect that much money.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we should be having this conversation at the end of the first quarter, or at the end of the second quarter, so we know where we stand financially.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree because I looked it over, and even when we were looking at the numbers the other day when John and I were looking at the numbers, I think that it's too early to make a decision.
Mr. Mayor, you got a question?
Question for Corey. I probably should just walk down the hall and ask you, but the Airbnb room tax, there was some confusion as to when we were getting that. Did we get any first quarter payments regarding the Airbnb room tax? I know it's not going to be much, but do you know if that came in yet? Because we were assured from Airbnb that was forthcoming.
Sure, I would have to take a look to see where that is at. I know that we have gotten some payments related to Airbnbs. I know that, like the property that the Sherrills did right off of Division Street, they've been, good about paying their room tax. So we do have some of that, coming in, but I'd have to double check to see, because I know that was Airbnb was going to start collecting that and sending that in directly, and I'll have to just double check the status of that.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions for the comptroller or treasurer?
No, I do have a comment, just because I'm on the hotel side. It's Michelle. We are starting to see sporting events come back. There aren't hockey tournaments, but such in August, the second and last weekend, they are now doing hockey camps. So they are starting, and that's not to say how long they are going to be there, but we are starting with events.
Very good. Thanks, Michelle. All right. Being no other questions for Corey, Mr. Mayor, you want to discuss number 5 for us, and what you contacted me for this request, so how about you explain it, what you're looking for?
Certainly. So going back to what everybody sees as the writing on the wall, the room tax is down because conferences and conventions just aren't happening as much anymore. The sporting events are just not happening as much anymore. And just for clarification, Mike, all we are disallowing is the use of community stadium. So I know that Spash and Pacelli both have other options within Portage County to play. The university doesn't seem to have one, but we're not even sure if WIAA, WEAC, and NCAA are going to even allow them to play sports. It's just if they do happen, we can't have more than 50 people on community stadium. So we're going to work with everybody to try and find some local options. But it's a big deal. And what Corey was talking about with those projections is we don't know what's going to happen. I heard from a very reliable source that this is just going to go away. It's one day we're going to wake up and it's just going to be gone. I heard that on national television, so it must be true. Regardless, what our goal is to stop that spiral of death. And that's what I'm calling it, because with less events coming, you are going to have less room tax. With less room tax, you are going to have less resources to lure events back. With less events, you're going to have less room tax, and you're just going to go into the ground like a Libyan jet. So what I had proposed to Chairman O'Connor, and I hadn't even talked to the Convention and Visitors Bureau prior to that, but there's a little bit of money left in the bottom of the pot this year. I propose that we reinvest that into our tourism resource, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau. They have laid people off. They're working at part-time, and they don't have the resources to go out and continue to lure those conferences and conventions back to Stevens Point. We need to do that, in my opinion. So by providing some additional resources that we have, that little bit of meat that's left on the bone, reinvest that into the Convention and Visitors Bureau so they can focus their resources on doing what they're supposed to do, and that's putting heads in beds, which will hopefully then allow us to have more events and conferences here, which would then increase the amount of room tax we collect and get us back onto that proper cycle in a more timely manner. So we didn't actually talk about a number with Chairman O'Connor, but now that I have some of these financials, it looks like you would be able to reasonably invest at least $20,000 back into the Convention and Visitors Bureau with resources that you have available this year, which would allow them to, again, then put that back into staff, and we would need to put restrictions on it that it would only be staff and marketing to try and get those people back. So with the reestablishment of conventions and conferences and athletic events being back in point, hopefully we'll be in a better place next year than not doing that. And that was my initial proposal.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Any questions for the
Yes.
mayor?
I have a couple.
Mr. Disher?
Actually, one's for Sarah. Sarah, did you apply for any PPE grants?
Unfortunately, Mike, we're a 501c6, not a 501c3, and we don't qualify.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Other question is, I know that we have procedures as to when someone comes to us for a grant or, lack of a better term, asking for money. And I look at our tourism agreement and it says in there that we can give extra funding to the CVB that goes above and beyond our contract, but the CVB for our contract needs to put that in writing to tell us why they need the money and where it's going and how much they need. I'm again concerned that we're not following our procedures here.
Mike,
I haven't decided yet if I'm for or against doing the money, but I'm concerned that, Mike, what happened? Maybe it won't be you, maybe it'll be the next guy, maybe the next mayor will come in and say, you know what? I think that Pacelli needs some money for a football stadium, so let's just give him money. And now we can say, but Mr. Mayor, you have to apply for Pacelli should come and apply for that. And his response would be, well, we've had mayors in the past just come to this committee and request funding and kind of circumventing our procedures. That kind of concerns me a little bit, that I guess, Mike, you woke up in the morning and thought that the CVB needed some money, but that bothers me about not following our contracts. We've already seen that happen for a little bit of money in our last Horseshoe outing. So I'm just, that concerns me. And I'm also concerned that the funding that we're going to be getting from room tax is going to be lower than projected. I'm concerned that we need to have money to meet our commitments. And we have some hefty commitments. And I'm also concerned that somebody else is going to come up with a good project and we're going to say, sorry, we don't have the money. And I know that this is important to the CVB and it's important to Stephen's point, but we kind of like this to follow our procedures when we do this kind of stuff. I just don't think we can, at the request of one person, say, okay, here's some money.
Yes, Mike?
So Mike, just to be clear, the CVB is not making that request. So the contract that you talk about, I understand that that's in place, but this isn't coming from the CVB. This is coming from my office. And you are absolutely right. A mayor 8, 10, 12 years from now could do the same thing, but this is a very unique situation. If you recall, we committed $100,000 of our general fund to providing incentives for the businesses because our council, who's elected, thought it important enough to re-inject some of that money back into the businesses that need it to prevent failures of those businesses. If those people, those small businesses couldn't stay afloat during this pandemic, we would be in much bigger trouble than we are because by closing the businesses, your vacancy rates increase, your property tax values go down. And if your property tax values go down, your income tax collection or property tax collection goes down. The businesses didn't come to us and say, hey, we need money. The council had enough foresight to say, listen, we're reinvesting in our community. And that's what I'm asking for. If you want me to put it in writing and go through the process of every other grant applicant, I would be happy to do that. But we're talking about a timeliness manner here. And that's why the proposal came forward. We have the ability to reinvest in the resources in our community rather than potentially watch them die. And that's really what I see here. So that's on me. If you want me to put the request in writing, I will certainly do that. But as far as the contract with the CVB, this isn't their request. This is a request from the city. And yes, you could say it's one man, but if you want me to bring it to council, I'm betting dollars to donuts that council is going to make that request as well.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I need to say that, I mean, this is vital to the whole purpose of, of our group. I feel like, if anything, I mean, if the CVB isn't able to operate in the way that they're intended, I feel like that, I mean, that is a direct impact on the whole point of why we exist. So I feel like this is something that is very much outside of the box of what we normally would be dealing with. And if I would hate for us to just be sitting on any money when we could be trying to support their work. which is going to directly impact tourism in the future. Instead of just looking at right now where we're at, I think we need to think about where we're going to be in a year or two, and know that their work is directly going to impact this community going forward.
Thanks, Gary. I guess also my concern is that where we're looking right now, we don't have any firm numbers. And the concern of issuing a check for 20,000 right now kind of worries me, considering we will be responsible for this in all of 21 also, and where the numbers are coming, you know, where will they be? So I guess I'm thinking maybe a two-tier approach, maybe give them half the amount now and have them come back after we see the second quarter numbers and, you know, address this again, maybe in early September. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that.
This is Michelle. I have a question only because it's zeroed out, but what were we projected for an expense for Riverfront Rendezvous?
35,000. Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought it was.
So that was money that we can count on. I guess I'm wondering if, you know, if we were really conservative on what might come in or not come in for room tax dollars, if we eliminated all of that, you know, where would we be at? I think we need to look at what can we know that we can count on? And I don't know if there's a way to project that, Corey.
Yes, so I can run any projections that the commission would like. So I've got it all in a spreadsheet, so it's real easy for me to run like a couple of different scenarios. So, you know, if you want me to run, you know, I mean, right now, the scenarios that I have for 2020, we have, or this base scenario is kind of 10% for the second quarter, 20% for the third quarter, and 30% for the fourth quarter. Now, if you want me to run something different, I can plug all kinds of numbers and I can run any kind of scenario that you'd like me to run and then show you basically, you know, this is how much money you'd have to work with under this scenario.
Sarah, do you have the STAR report for the Stevens Point area that would show occupancy for the second quarter?
I do, Michelle. So the STAR report is short for Smith Travel Research Report. And for Stevens Point and Plover, the Smith Travel Research documents occupancies, average daily rates, and revenue per available room for all of our hotels in Stevens Point and Plover, except for the Point Motel and one other, might be like Maples or one of those non-chain type hotels. So for June, we were down almost exactly 40%. So not quite the extreme that Corey's reporting. Same with April and May. So I think Corey, maybe your numbers are a little conservative, which is fine. I would rather err on the side of caution because I did the exact same thing when I rebudgeted. But now, since I've rebudgeted for the Bureau, I've learned that occupancies, while they're awful, they aren't as bad as I originally intended or thought.
So Sarah, if you were able to see Corey or email him what the occupancy is and the average daily rate, we would be able to figure out our tax dollars, the tax income. And yeah, Corey could have a number within a couple percent.
Yep, I can send them all of second quarter data that we get from Smith Travel Research. I will say, and Melissa or Michelle, you touched on this, but occupancy was down about 40%, but average daily rate was down about 25%. So you have that compounded impact, which will have a negative effect on all of us as we move forward. And for 2021, industry right now is telling destination marketing organizations like ours to take our 2019 budget and strip 40% off across the board, and that's what we can expect for room tax income for 2021. Again, that's just an industry projection at this point. I mean, this is a very fluid situation and it changes daily. And I've been monitoring it daily, but unfortunately, like Corey said, we're working a quarter behind. So we won't know until really the end of July when we receive all our room tax dollars, what second quarter actually will be in terms of income.
Any other comments, anybody? Questions?
The one thing I would say is that, Mike, where you talked about following a certain procedure, I don't think that this necessarily falls under a grant from the standpoint of, is this an event? It's not an event and it's not a particular pet project. I think a lot of what Carrie said is that this is an extremely unique situation that needs to be dealt with in an extreme method. So maybe that's something to consider, that we have to make some concessions at some point in time, and I guess if we get another pandemic, we can handle that in another extreme way.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions?
I have one. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I just had a question before we vote, so I don't know if we need to wait before there's a motion I have a question on voting procedures.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, I'm speaking from past experience. When we did our softball association grants for Zenoff Park, and then we did one for an umpires clinic that we ran in February. As you well know, I serve on the board of the Stevens Point Softball Association, which is a 501c4. Don't get reimbursed, have no financial gain at all involved. But I was told several times by the city attorney that any vote that came up with the Stevens Point Softball Association involved, because I was on their board, I had to abstain. He wasn't sure if it was breaking any laws or not, but he said, you don't want to get involved in someone saying that you did. So I'm wondering, Carrie is on the board of directors for the CVB. Is that not the same thing? Is that not also a conflict of interest for her? And should she not be abstaining from this vote?
I was going to ask the same thing. I didn't know if I was even going to be able to vote on this. So I still want to speak my opinion on it. But
yeah,
if it's not appropriate for me to vote, I totally understand that.
Okay. Yeah, I did check with the city attorney, and he was in more or less the same stuff that you heard, Mike. So I don't have a definite answer one way or the other. It'd probably be safer for you not to vote on it, since precedence is always, I would think, be the better route. So, all right.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess I expected that. So.
All right. So being with that, I guess, again, my thought is I'm more conservative since we don't have the second quarter info yet. And I agree with you, Jim. This is a different once in a lifetime event. I do feel we should help them. I'm just concerned if somebody shows up here in 21, since our normal award bidding comes, the end of the year or next year, I'd hate to tell somebody, hey, we have a big event for 2022. There's no money. We can't help you. So I guess on that end, I'd like to be conservative. I'm thinking maybe offer half of that 20 now that the mayor is requesting, and once the numbers come out here at the end of July, maybe meet in August, early September, and if things are better as Sarah, you're projecting, and Michelle, hey, another 10,000 would be okay. If they're not, or things are getting worse, we're not projecting hockey for this fall and winter, go from there. So I don't know. Any other questions? I think you had your hand up, Jim.
Yeah, I was going to, you had already started that, and I was going to say perhaps we could go half at this time, because if the 20,000, and if you could help me with this, Sarah, if the 20,000 would help you project it over the rest of the year, then would 10,000 help you for a while, and in September we could again consider for the second 10,000? Would that help, Sarah?
Well, at this point, Jim, thanks for asking. We're in survival mode, so anything will help at this point. We've written a couple of grants and received other funding. We're dipping into our reserves at this point, so we have paused all marketing at this point. The only thing that's really coming out of our office is public relations efforts that Melissa's doing on behalf of the Bureau, and any contracted marketing services that we have. For instance, we have to pay for our website, and that's an annual fee, and we're keeping up those monthly payments to our web provider. But other than that, everything is pretty much public relations at this point. We have no paid advertising. We did get a small grant, about $10,000 or a little more, from the Wisconsin Department of Tourism. And we're working on a joint promotion with Wisconsin Rapids and Marshfield at this moment. And so we're turning over every rock, hoping to find additional dollars. So to your point, 10 would be great. 20, 30 or more would be even better once we find out what the actuals are.
I do have another question. Sarah, how big are your reserves?
We have about 4 months of operating in our reserves.
Okay.
And we will, by the end of this month, we will be tapping into those.
Okay, so you have 4 months in reserve that you haven't tapped into yet. Is that what
Right.
you said? Okay.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, you have a question?
Of operating only. That doesn't include any marketing or any payroll.
Okay.
More of a
That's to keep
comment,
the
really,
lights
Mr.
on.
Chairman.
Yes.
I understand the theory of waiting because something bigger and better might come along, but I have learned that you have to take the here and now and act on what you know. I mean, I would love to have somebody come in and say, hey, Mr. Mayor, we'd like to turn that vacant piece of property into a cash cow for the city, and we're going to make the best deal that we've ever seen. Fox Theater was a good example. We could sit there and wait and wait and wait and hope something happens because something great might come along, and we saw what happened there. I would strongly urge this body to inject that $20,000 back into the CVB. They are running right now, as Sarah said, at just expenses. They're covering costs. Mike, to put in an analogy for you, you can still play a softball tournament with one bat, right? You can get through it. It will happen. But wouldn't it be better if you had 3 bats or 5 bats, or maybe every kid had a ball glove? And that's what we're dealing with here. Yes, we might have a great project coming along next year, and I hope it happens. And I swear I will work with you to try and figure out a way to make it happen if and when that does. But we have to act in the here and now. And if we don't do something soon, there may not be resources available next year to put together that great event if it happens. Let's say we get a LPGA event at Century. Without the resources that the CVB has, we might not be able to pull that off anyway. So rather than wait, I would ask that you just do this now. $20,000 seems like a pretty safe bet. And if some big project comes along next year, give me a call and we're going to try and figure out a way to make that happen.
Yeah, I think I want to emphasize what you said too, Mike, about, I mean, most of what we fund, the CVB supports. So if they're not able to operate, it makes no difference what money we give, because they offer a support that we can't replace.
I would like to make a motion, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the CVB $10,000 at this point. And after we see our quarterly reviews, I don't have that right in front of me, we will discuss again, if they need the money, the rest of the $20,000. And the reason I say I want to split it is we've already kind of come to the conclusion that 20 grand will take them to the end of the year. So maybe 10 grand will take us to the point where we'll all feel comfortable in giving them that, going to the 20 grand. So that's my motion. Let's do 10 now and 20 grand. Corey, when will our next reports come out again? You're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here. So we will
Probably at the
have,
end of September, right?
well, actually, so at the end of July, so really 10 days from now, we'll have the second quarter numbers.
Right.
So, and then the end of October, so Halloween, we'll have the third quarter numbers.
So that would be about halfway through the year. So I would say then at the end of the third quarter, we can decide if we want to do the other 10.
Chair, you need a second here, just by the way, in order to discuss further.
Is there a second for the motion? Go ahead, Michelle.
John, is it only you and I?
Well, I guess, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I'm supportive of the 20,000. I just am worried about giving it at this point in time. If we were at the middle of August right now and we had the second quarter numbers, I'd say, hey, great, they're better than we projected, and that's fine. But at this point in time, I guess I don't see it may be petty, but I don't see a reason why we can't meet again here next month or right after Labor Day and say, hey, boy, these numbers are much better than we projected, and hey, maybe we can give 30,000.
Chair, a reminder though, without a second, the discussion should hold.
All right.
Yeah.
Michelle, I am here as well.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, do we have a second for Mike Disher's motion?
Could you repeat that, please? The motion.
The motion by Disher was to grant $10,000 to the CVB at this point and discuss again any further grant after the second quarter numbers come in. And Mr. Chair,
So what
if there isn't a
happens if we
second,
don't get a second right now? Can we make a new motion?
this motion fails and a new motion could be made.
Yeah.
All right. There will be no second. All right, does anybody else choose to make a motion?
I want to make a motion that we do grant the $10,000 to the CVB now and set a benchmark for the date of August 10th, to where we could give additional funds.
And what would those benchmarks be?
I think that's what we need to discuss. I mean, do we make it that Corey's numbers were right on and it's only 10%, or his numbers are projections, which Corey, I totally understand how you're doing that. Or those numbers are higher, so we do a higher percent.
So Mr. Chair, if I may, the motion by Sedlak is to grant $10,000 to the CVB and set a benchmark by August 10th to give additional funds. That is a motion on the floor.
We have a second.
Could you clarify that, please? I guess what I want to know is, so as of August 10th, Corey's projections are right on the money. Then August 10th, if they're on the money, then the second 10,000 is automatically pushed forward. Is that what you're saying, Michelle?
We need a second in order to discuss further.
Well, can it be clarified?
No.
Oh.
Is there,
That's actually
I'm just
not
wondering
true.
if you,
Clarification of the motion is completely in order.
can you say a minimum of 10? For
Yeah,
that
Carrie,
second?
repeat. Carrie, I couldn't understand what you said.
I said, I'm wondering if, like, I guess I'm trying to understand Jim's question, and I'm wondering if you can, for a clarification, say it would be a minimum of 10 or at that time. Well, I guess, never mind. I don't know if that makes sense either.
Well, I guess what I was looking for was in the motion that as of August 10th, if the numbers are equal or greater than Corey's projection, then the 10,000 would just go. This would be granting the 10,000 right away on the 10th of August. Whereas if Corey's numbers are below, then the 10,000 doesn't go. And that would require further meeting with this group. Is that what you're saying, Michelle?
Yes, it is exactly what I'm saying.
All right. That being said, do we have a second for the motion?
I would second that.
All right. Can you, Mr. Kramer, repeat what the motion would be exactly?
I might need help to make sure I got the wording right, but based on that clarification, a motion by Sedlak to grant $10,000 to the CVB and to grant an additional $10,000 if Corey's projections are accurate or less than what is actually received by August 10th.
No, more than.
So if
So if they're
more money is
11%.
brought, if more money is brought in than Corey's projecting, equal to what he projected, or more money is brought in, a second $10,000 would be granted.
Yes.
All right. That being said, do we want to do a voice vote on this, or are we okay just doing a
Voice.
voice? All right. So,
Actually, with this setup, I think we should probably do a show of hands.
I don't have my camera working.
I can
Okay,
call the roll.
Michelle, oh yeah, call roll.
Chair, would you like me to call the roll?
yes, that'd be fine.
Okay. Wynn,
Abstain.
O'Connor,
Aye.
Sedlak,
Aye.
Oliva,
Aye.
Disher,
No.
passes 3-1.
All right. Very well. So that being said, that passes. Item number 6. Discussion on grant application process and grant program timeline for 21. One thing we talked about when we met in February was, again, the issue when the dollars come available and when we can actually spend them. In the past, we've requested if anybody wanted any of the funds to come at the end of the year. That being said, we don't have the true numbers of what we can give out till after the first of the year. So it was said maybe we should wait till the first of the year to request people to submit bids for any of the money. So do we want to discuss that and change that, or do we want to keep as the same? What's anybody's thoughts?
So what you're talking about is we're not going to accept any grant applications for the rest of the year. Is that right?
No, in the past, we've put our bid or our questionnaire out to the public
Okay.
in late October, November. And we would meet usually towards the end of December and say, this is how much money we can give out. But that being said, again, the end of the quarter ends on December 31st. We don't know that true number from the last quarter till into January. So we're kind of shooting, and this year could be a big issue. I mean, how did fourth quarter end up? So do we want to wait till after the first of the year and we have the true numbers to make a decision on that?
I don't know that I have a problem with accepting any grant applications and then talking about them in December versus waiting until January, February, or March. I don't, if we have the money, we can do it. If we don't have the money, we can't do it.
But we don't know our true numbers, is I guess the point, Mike. We don't. We're
It seems like it
assuming.
makes sense to,
But you'll have an
it
idea.
seems like it makes sense to still put the notice out and allow people to apply, but not make the decisions until after, until January. I mean, that's what I think we should do, just so we actually have an accurate picture of what we can give out.
Correct.
Don't you think we'll
I
have an
agree,
accurate?
Carrie. That's a
Don't you
valid
think we'll have a
point.
picture? Don't you think we'll have a picture of what we're doing if we look at the next 2 quarters? If we can see room tax dollars are down.
But I think we're also looking at the future, not just this current year. This is changing our rules, not just for this year because of COVID, but
Okay.
the problem that we ran into last year. We weren't sure where our fourth quarter ended, and we'd have a better, I guess, accuracy of giving money out if we knew actually what our previous quarter gave us.
I got it.
Well,
So John, couldn't we have that the applications are all due by the end of the year, but that we don't meet on it until the first week in February, when we would know all the funds that were there every year?
yeah, that's a good idea, Michelle. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Dan, is there any issue with doing that you see?
Nope, I can do anything the committee would want. So typically, I think last year was my first go around with helping as a liaison with the committee. We took the packet or the information that was in the packet that you guys see is labeled draft. We ultimately updated the dates, and last year it was due the 29th. So based on what you guys are talking about, if the committee would like, we can make that the last business day the city is open. And other things that I think we can do is, I think before there was 8 copies required. I believe that the committee's probably going pretty digital, in the fact that we could probably have those things sent in digitally. And if somebody wants a copy, my office could print it for you. So I think that's a change we can do. And really all I need from the committee is when you'd like them due, which I think you just talked about. And then you tell me when you'd like to meet, and I can get the materials in your packet for you to review.
Nice.
I think the only piece that might be worth asking is Comptroller Treasurer Laddick, roughly when he believes it's a safe number to know end of year balance. If that's January 15th or if that's February 1st, that would be information good to have from Comptroller Laddick.
So the fourth quarter payments would be due January 31st. So I'd say any time in early February, then we would have the total number for 2020.
One thing that was talked about in February was fine tuning that application form. There were some areas in there that were questionable. Some people did volunteer. I don't know if we want to meet maybe one more time after Labor Day. Everybody kind of look through that contract, and we can meet again and see if there's anything that we want to add or change or take out of that. Any comments on that? I know there were issues about how the money was issued and for what, and we've kind of, I think just what we agreed to with the VB, you know, there was some questions about what that money can be used for. I think we need to fine tune all that. So any questions on that or comments?
I agree with you, John. I think that's a good idea for us to review it and come back in a few months and go through that before we put it out to the public.
Maybe after convene in late September, maybe early October, we'll see where we're at again with this, and that'll give you enough time, Dan, to work it and get copies out to us and have questions. So.
Yeah,
All right.
and like I said, it is in the packet if you'd like to review it between then and now, so you can see what's in there. I do, if the committee's okay, I'd like to reformat the funding proposal sheet. If you look at it, the formatting is very poor. So that's something that we can do after you give me the content. My office will work on cleaning that up, maybe making it fillable. I think those are things that are available now that weren't probably when this document was developed.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Anything to add? Thus being none, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.